I'm going to try to speed through this. As I said, I'm Camille Fournier. I am the CTO at Rent the Runway. And because this is a theme of masters and models, I thought I would talk about how Rent the Runway has had to master reverse logistics as part of building our business. So, briefly, your Cinderella moment, all of you, men and women, imagine you're going to the ball and you are just waiting for your fairy godmother to come and bring you the perfect ball gown so that you will look beautiful and amazing. And instead, your fairy godmother gets stuck in Chicago and she can't make it, and you have nothing to wear except all the boring rags that are already in your closet. Rent the Runway is a business about delivering Cinderella experiences. And most people who engage with our product see our website or our app, and they see the beautiful dresses. They see all the designers, all the things that they can order. And they don't really think about all of the operational complexity that it takes to deliver an amazing experience like this. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we have scaled our logistics operation over the past 5 years of the company's existence, from growing from around 400 units in our launch in late 2009 to over 100,000 units of inventory today. We grew from a rack at a dry cleaner to a 160,000 square foot warehouse, and we have learned a lot about how far you can go on scrappy solutions and what point you really need to start adding technology. So very, very briefly, this already got explained a little bit, but what is Rent the Runway? How did we begin? Rent the Runway was founded by a pair of Harvard Business School grads, Jen Hyman and Jenny Fleiss, and they met at Harvard, and they realized that they had a bunch of friends who kept going to events, and they would all be buying these expensive dresses for their events, and they'd get pictures taken, the pictures would go all over Facebook, and then they would never wear those dresses again. They would just hang in their closet forever. And they said, why in the world should people buy dresses for these events that they're only going to wear once and never going to wear again? So they thought of this business. Basically, let's rent them instead, right? Why buy when you can just rent? So you go on our website, you find a dress you love, you pick it out for your event date, we ship it to you, you wear it, look beautiful, take pictures, put it back in the mail to us, and you're done. Great. Simple. So when the business launched in 2009, they actually rented out a rack at a dry cleaner. The founders thought of a lot of the pieces of the business before they launched, right? They knew they would have to dry clean stuff, right? This is a clothing rental business. You can't just ship people dirty clothes. They knew they'd have to have a website, they'd have to take orders. But what they didn't think about the week of launch was they would have to actually track inventory, and they would actually need a warehouse management system. So they launched without that. Some of the consequences of that include the fact that we rent 2 sizes generally. So you get a size and a backup size in case the thing you rent doesn't fit in the size you thought you were, because we almost always rent a size smaller than we actually are. True fact. You get a bigger backup size, and then, okay, that one actually fits. They didn't track that the first couple weeks. And instead of freaking out and taking the site down or whatever, or throwing their hands up in despair and saying, oh, well, our founders said, okay, great, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to call everybody up, pretend to be customer service, pretend to be doing a survey about their experience with the product. And by the way, did you get a backup size? What size was it? What size did you end up wearing? So even though they launched and they didn't think about the inventory stuff at all, made it work, just used those opportunities of not actually having that information to learn more about our customer and track more information. Okay, so fast forward. Rent the Runway was very successful. People wanted to do this. And so the business grew. And the business grew very, very quickly in the first year and a half, from around 400 units of inventory to about 8,000, right? And we actually moved out of that rack in the dry cleaner pretty quickly into an actual proper warehouse, eventually in Secaucus, New Jersey, at the very end of 2011, right? That was actually when I joined the company. So even though we had moved into a proper warehouse, we still had not actually built proper warehouse management software. And the way that we ran our warehouse was a little bit unusual. Probably if you think of a warehouse, you think of something that is like a bunch of people, and there's a bunch of automation and a bunch of brown boxes and, sort of people lifting things, right? You think of something kind of cold and clinical. But our warehouse is a little more weird. So we name all the dresses on our website. This is the Fifth Avenue Showstopper dress, one of our most popular dresses. And in the early days of our warehouse, instead of telling people, oh, go pick style, BM 152, They would instead say, go pick the Fifth Avenue showstopper dress. And the way that you would onboard new employees to the warehouse is you would actually have flashcards for all the dresses, and they would be expected to know the names of every dress. A little bit odd. We didn't have any ways of actually tracking the individual dresses. We couldn't figure out how to get barcodes to stick on the labels of the dresses until about late 2011. So for a long time, all we had was you just knew how many units you had of each style and each size. But there was no actual individual tracking of the units, which makes it difficult to know which customer has which unit, and if something doesn't come back, who didn't send it back? Because you kind of need to go and get that money from them, right? We didn't really think about shipping that much in the early days, even though, if you're renting things to people and you're sending them via mail and they're sending them back to you, shipping is actually pretty important. But the early software just sort of made some simplifying assumptions about, oh yeah, it'll take this long to get to someone and this long to come back. And if people are late, well, we're just not going to think about that. We're not going to worry about that. So as you can see, it was all extremely scrappy. And this really culminated in the ultimate scrappy piece of communication software we used, which was Google Docs. Google Docs ran a lot of our warehouse. In fact, between all of you and me, we still, I think, have some Google Docs running some pieces of our retail function. And in particular, what we really used Google Docs for a lot was communication between our customer service team and our warehouse. We had a document called the Bible. What was the Bible? If, for whatever reason, a dress was not available for a customer's order, the warehouse team would put information about that in the Bible, which is a gigantic shared Google spreadsheet. Our customer service team would then look there. One of the customer service associates would say, okay, I'm going to act on this. I'm going to call the customer up. And then I'm going to put into the Bible the replacement dress that we want to give her. This was the column headers for the Bible, 31 columns of lovely Google Doc madness. And this actually worked. We used this Bible until, I can't remember if we killed it in late 2012 or early 2013. A long time this was in use for our company. And it worked really well until we started having these really, really big spikes of rentals in the holiday seasons, right? And you would have 60 people, 80 people trying to access this document, changing it. You'd be losing data because somebody would accidentally delete 50 rows and just, whoops, sorry, I guess those are 50 people we're not calling, right? Really worked pretty well for a while, but it really did not scale. So what we learned in those early days was that a lot of things actually scale even if you don't put smart software or automation against them. And humans are really smart. But once you start to grow beyond a certain point, humans really cannot scale things very well, and you have to start actually adding technology. So what kind of technology did we add? Well, very, very briefly, for those of you not familiar with warehouses, most typical e-commerce, you're concerned with sort of this very simple path, right? Pick from a shelf, pack in a box, ship to a customer. Optimizing for that. If you run a small e-commerce business, you probably have a third party running your warehouse. Okay, great. Rent the Runway, of course, has some unique problems. In particular, we do time-sensitive, full reverse logistics, which means that basically everything that leaves our warehouse has to come back into our warehouse. In fact, we're a weekend-dominated business. That's when events tend to happen. And so Wednesdays, we have both most units coming back to our warehouse and most units needing to be shipped from our warehouse. In fact, over 60% of our inventory these days can be received and shipped within a single day. Now, there are a few people who have done this. Netflix is the one that comes to mind for most people. Netflix does not have to worry about some of the things that we do, though, such as dry cleaning. This is a photo of our dry cleaner in our current warehouse. We have the largest dry cleaner in the United States, probably in North America, I believe. We also, of course, have to deal with things like repairs. This is our seamstress area, right? Got to hem things, sew buttons back on, repair tears, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things are very, very unique to our business because we're renting delicate, high-value inventory. So what kind of technology do you need to add to your standard warehouse stack to make this stuff work? Some of the initial innovations include just taking accurate reservations, which means actually modeling inventory availability and trying to predict the future. Predicting the future includes accounting for things like transit time, holidays, customers who are going to return things late. How long is a particular item of clothing actually going to last? A silk dress may last a lot less longer than a, Hervé bandage dress, for example. So building out really accurate reservations and being able to take accurate reservations was one of the key, incredibly important things that we had to do back in 2011 to really help our business scale. That plus accurate barcoding of our inventory and understanding where things were in our warehouse allowed us to finally scale allocation of inventory to orders. So now we can allocate inventory in milliseconds to the entire set of orders for a given day based on what is where in our warehouse. Now, that doesn't sound that exciting or that interesting, except when you think about what our warehouse looks like on any given day. So this is a bin full of UPS envelopes. And if you come to the Rent the Runway warehouse in the morning, on any day that it's open, you're going to see bins and bins and bins and bins and bins and bins of these, and they all look exactly the same. I told you earlier that we have to deal with dry cleaning. And dry cleaning has a limited capacity. You can only put so much weight in a dry cleaning machine, and it takes a while to run, right? You can't speed up your washing machine as much as you might like it. You can't speed up dry cleaning equipment either. It's the same thing. So we don't want to process every single package that comes back into our warehouse. We actually want to know what's important and what isn't. So we were able to introduce this concept of unit priority, which tells everyone in the warehouse, anytime they touch an item of inventory, how important it is to be processed quickly today, right? If it's a red, that means it has to go out today. So UPS dropped it off at 10 a.m. that morning, and it has to be on the last UPS truck at 8 p.m. that night. UPS does not wait. We have occasionally chased UPS trucks down, literally driven onto the tarmac at the UPS airport in New Jersey, but we try not to do that very often because they really don't like it when we do that. So instead, we try to make sure we're really only processing the things that we absolutely have to process, and understanding the priority of every single item that we have coming back into our warehouse lets us not even bother to open those packages that contain dresses that we don't need today. We were also So one interesting thing about our business now is that we have what we call cross-docking, which is stuff comes in and leaves the same day. And this allows us to turn our inventory every single weekend. So for a long time, we had to put a day of pause time in our reservation calendar. So you would have one day of warehouse turnaround time where stuff could come in and get processed and whatever, and then it would not be available to rent and ship out until the day after it came back. Cool, except that that means we can only turn our inventory twice a month. We want to make a lot of money on this inventory, and popular inventory will rent every single weekend. So to turn that off, we had to enable ourselves to actually process orders that had inventory that was coming in the morning, which meant that we couldn't just have one long rack where somebody would say, oh, these 2 items are ready, but I'm waiting for one from the cleaners. And you would have, let's say 100, 500 of those, where somebody just literally walked through and looked at everything. Instead, we have a bay system, pretty obvious, right? A computer tells you which slot everything has to go in, and so people from different areas can put things in the slots, and when they're all complete, somebody from shipping grabs them and ships them. Fairly obvious innovation, but it allowed us to scale from doing a max of like 400 units of cross-docking a day to thousands of units of cross-docks. Finally, of course, there's shipping. All of our tech systems in the warehouse are named after animals, so Chipmunk is one of them. That's the only one that lasted this slide deck. We control all shipping label printing for outbound and inbound shipping. Now, outbound makes sense, right? Because sometimes we're going to ship things to UPS next day air, sometimes to ground. But inbound is actually also incredibly important for us. This shows 2 curves. The purple curve is what happens if we do our normal inbound shipping, where we ship things in UPS 2-day select. And that spike on Wednesday is whatever. It's a spike on Wednesday. Now, that spike on Wednesday is meaningful because we have to capacity plan to the spikes. And this is not dry cleaning in the cloud. This is dry cleaning equipment in our warehouse, right? Unfortunately, we have not yet figured out how to be the Amazon Web Services of dry cleaners yet. I think that would be cool if we did that, but we haven't figured that out, and nobody is providing that service. So we have to capacity plan for the biggest spike. If we can get some of our inventory back on Tuesdays by paying a little more money to have UPS next day air, even though it's more expensive, for return packages, we can smooth that curve and spend millions of dollars less on dry cleaning equipment. So what has happened? What have we done? We've built what we call a brain, the complete just-in-time reverse logistics system of all of these things. And it has allowed us to turn our inventory every single weekend. We have a typical turnaround window of 8 hours, right? Stuff comes in and is back out of the warehouse within 8 hours. And we can turn almost everything around in 24 hours if we need to. So what's next for us? The next challenges are really global optimizations. We have multiple retail locations now. We will be opening new warehouses. We only have one giant warehouse right now in Secaucus. So figuring out the global optimization of where inventory should be at what time to match our demand is the next stage of evolution of our logistics software. All right. Building all this stuff, doing all this, what have we learned? What should you take away from this as people trying to start up your own startups right now? Well, having a warehouse is actually really fun. Dealing with physical goods is fun if you're an engineer. I'm an engineer. I'm used to dealing with bits and data floating around in the ether. And it's really cool to have like a place you can go and see all this stuff. It's a little overwhelming. One thing we've learned in building this out is that it's as expensive and difficult to hire a really good dry cleaner as it is to hire a really good engineer. So we actually train people in becoming dry cleaners. It's really overwhelming during hurricanes. This is a photo of our parking lot during Hurricane Sandy, which was a really fun week for Rent the Runway. Fortunately, it didn't flood, but we did have to siphon gas out of our delivery vehicles to power our generator for a while. So we are navigating the very tricky waters of very tight time frames, high complexity. Every second counts when it comes to delivering that time-sensitive Cinderella experience to our customer. As you think about things, though, the only thing that really matters is your business growth, not how cool your technology is, nothing but your business growth. And for us, that means creating magical moments like these. So hopefully what you will take away from this is don't just throw tech at a problem the minute that you have a problem. It's okay to spend some time having the humans in your organization figure out human solutions to problems. And then once you scale a little bit more and the humans really cannot handle it, putting technology in place at that point. And that is all. Thank you very much.